The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Whitford mansion, illuminating a home that looked perfect on the outside but echoed with silence inside. 6-year-old Ethan, the only son of billionaire entrepreneur Alexander Whitford, sat near the living room window, staring out with empty eyes. He hadn't spoken a word, not one single sound, in almost a year, ever since his mother walked out of the house without looking back. Therapists called it selective mutism triggered by trauma, but Alexander knew it was deeper. His son wasn't just silent. His son was hurting. And for the first time in his life, Alexander, the mighty self-made millionaire, had no idea how to fix something. He had money, he had influence, he had resources, but he didn't have the one thing his son needed, comfort. That's where Lena Dawson entered the story, a 24-year-old maid with soft eyes, a calm voice, and a past she rarely spoke about. She had only been hired for housekeeping, nothing more. Alexander hadn't expected someone like her. She was humble, gentle, and quiet, and on her first day she sensed the tension in the mansion immediately. The servants whispered, the halls felt heavy, and the boy looked lost. When Lena first saw Ethan sitting alone, hugging his knees, she felt something tug inside her chest. She didn't know his story yet, but his silence spoke louder than any words could. While other staff avoided disturbing Ethan, Lena approached him slowly, carefully, as if approaching a small bird that might fly away at any sudden movement. She gently placed a small cup of warm milk beside him and whispered, "If you ever need anything, I'm right here." Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't even blink. But Lena noticed the way his fingers twitched, as if her presence had reached him, even slightly. Alexander saw the interaction from across the hall and frowned. "He won't respond," he warned flatly. "He hasn't spoken since," he paused, swallowing hard, "since his mother left." Lena simply nodded. "Sometimes silence is someone's way of asking for help," she said softly. Her words lingered in Alexander's heart longer than he expected. Days passed. Lena became a quiet presence in the mansion, cleaning rooms, preparing small snacks, humming soft tunes under her breath. And Ethan slowly started following her, not closely enough to be obvious, but close enough that she noticed. If she moved to the kitchen, he appeared near the doorway. If she folded laundry, he stood in the hall. If she watered the plants, he sat on the staircase steps, watching. One afternoon, Lena sat on the carpet and began arranging colored pencils she found in Ethan's room. Without speaking, she placed them in a perfect rainbow. Then, deliberately, she mixed them all up again. Ethan's eyebrows raised slightly. She waited. He slowly approached, almost against his own will, and sat beside her. Together, in complete silence, they sorted the colors. It was the first moment of connection he'd shared with anyone in months. Alexander walked in, stunned. His son, who refused to eat with tutors or even look at therapists, was sitting next to a maid, calm, focused, present. "How did you do that?" Alexander asked later that night. Lena smiled. "Children don't need perfection. They need presence." The next week brought an unexpected storm. Wind howled through the mansion, the thunder shook the windows, and Ethan, terrified of storms since childhood, curled into a ball, trembling. The nanny panicked. The butler tried reasoning. Nothing worked. When Lena rushed upstairs and found him hiding under his blanket, she knelt beside him without a word. She began humming the same soft tune she always hummed while working. Slowly, Ethan peeked out. His tiny fingers reached for her sleeve, gripping it tightly. Alexander watched from the doorway, breath caught in his chest. His son, who hadn't touched anyone since his mother's departure, was holding onto Lena like she was the only safe place in the world. From that night onward, something changed. Ethan started leaving his room. He started sitting near Lena during meals. He even played with building blocks while she cleaned. The entire staff saw the transformation, and Alexander couldn't understand why a complete stranger could reach his son when professionals couldn't. But every time he watched Lena, how patient she was, how she never forced Ethan, how she gave him space yet never abandoned him, he realized she wasn't doing anything magical. She was simply giving Ethan what he desperately needed, unconditional gentleness. One quiet evening, Lena found Ethan drawing alone. He was scribbling something with surprising intensity. When she walked closer, she saw a childish drawing of a woman, a man, and a boy, holding hands. Ethan's hands shook as he pressed the crayon harder. Tears blurred his vision. Lena gently placed the tip of her finger on the drawing. "Is this your family?" she whispered. Ethan nodded. It was the first gesture he had willingly given in nearly a year. A simple nod, but to Alexander, who stood behind them unseen, it was a miracle. And then it happened, the moment that would forever change their lives. Ethan dropped the crayon, looked at Lena with trembling eyes, and whispered in a hoarse, tiny voice, "Don't leave." The words sliced through the silence like lightning. Lena froze. Alexander felt his entire world tilt. The boy who had been silent for months spoke. And his first words weren't to his father, not to a therapist, they were to her. Lena's eyes filled with tears. She cupped Ethan's face gently. "I'm not going anywhere," she whispered. "I promise." Alexander's breath hitched. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel grateful, not as a millionaire, not as an employer, but as a father whose son had just come back to life because of this one woman. From that day, everything began to heal, slowly, but genuinely. Alexander offered Lena a permanent position. Ethan began speaking small words, then sentences. Laughter returned to the mansion like sunlight breaking through heavy clouds, and deep inside, Alexander knew this truth: some angels don't come from heaven. They come disguised as maids with gentle hands and kind hearts. If you enjoyed this emotional story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us create more heart-touching stories that inspire millions.